Hey, it's Matt Leicht here, hashtag the Sarasota Realtor, and I am sitting here with Allstate agent Nino Gancitano. Nino, would you mind introducing yourself? How long have you been in the industry, and what insurances you do cover?
Absolutely. I've been in with Allstate Insurance with our corporation, AMG Insurance and Financial Services, since 2003. Currently, we have two locations here in Sarasota. The one at 5706 Clark Road, which is just west of the interstate. And we just opened a second location last December, and that is 7259 Bee Ridge Road, and that's just just east of the interstate here locally in Sarasota. So
great. Well, we're going to jump right into it. With it being hurricane season, and I've had clients kind of ask me, if I have to file a hurricane claim, say my roof has partial damage, how do I go about doing that? And will insurance cover anything unless I reach that deductible?
Okay. So first of all, we have to establish ultimately, what deductible applies. There's two deductibles on a policy. There's an all other perils deductible and there's a hurricane deductible. When does that hurricane deductible come into play? That's when the National Weather Service issues a hurricane watch or warning for the area. So we have to be in from that 74 miles an hour or above in order for that deductible to kick in. That deductible is active until 48 hours after the storm passes. Okay, so this could be a tornado afterwards, still falls under that hurricane deductible. It's 48 hours after that point. So assuming that we are in a hurricane and we do have damage from that hurricane, you're going to be dealing with normally a 2% deductible. Well, 2% of what? Whatever you insure your house for under the coverage A portion of dwelling, 2% of that. So let's assume that the house is insured at $400,000. 2% of that is going to be the deductible. You're going to have an $8,000 deductible, meaning that we have to hit that amount of damage before the insurance company is obligated to pay anything.
Right, that's great, especially in hurricane season, kind of knowing what to expect. I know last year, if you've got the numbers for Hurricane Irma, if you wouldn't mind sharing how many claims were filed.
Absolutely. So statewide, currently they're showing 998,000 claims were filed in the state of Florida in regards to Irma, and just under $10.5 billion paid out by insurers in the state. So those are pretty staggering numbers, even compared to Matthew and Irma that were the previous years. Ultimately it was a devastating hurricane, and ultimately, which is, can and will impact rates within the state moving forward.
So you do foresee that impacting rates moving forward because $10 billion was paid out?
Yes, not as much as we saw previously. The 05, the 06 seasons, those were pretty traumatic. Yeah. Ultimately, I think that the insurance companies that have been here for a period of time are now a little bit better prepared from a financial standpoint to be able to manage the losses better, which ultimately can lead to less increases. So not as impactful as we might think, but I definitely think it is going to affect rates.
Right. Now, kind of moving down the list of our top questions that we've received is, right now, I already have a hurricane policy or a homeowners insurance policy. Is there anything I can do today to lower my premiums? If I'm paying so much money in premiums, new windows, alarms, security, is there anything I can do to lower my current premiums today?
Sure. So as far as if we look at two segments, so homes built March of 2002 prior and March of 2002 and newer. That's when the building code changed as far as a lot of the hurricane characteristics. So moving forward on the new homes, 2002 and newer, there are certain things, alarm systems, centrally monitored burglar fire alarm systems, that's going to save money, not significant enough in most cases to justify what you're going to pay. That's more peace of mind. Right. Most of those homes are going to already receive the majority of the bulk of discounts based off of the building code change. You probably hear, and everyone out there has probably heard of a wind mitigation inspection, or people talk about wind mitigation inspections. What the heck is that? Those are inspections that companies require homes built prior to 2002 to receive certain credits on their homeowners policies for building characteristics within the home that will stand up better to hurricanes. That is your number one piece of proof to the insurance company that you're going to be able to save money.
Now, kind of moving down, what can you describe to us what is liability protection And really, how much do I actually need?
Sure. So liability on a homeowner's policy is going to provide you coverage if you were sued for negligence on negligence on your part on or off your property. People don't realize that it's not just your property. So the bottom line is, examples. You hire a painter. The painter comes over. He's on a ladder. He falls off, breaks his leg, okay, and then decides to come back and sue you because he said that you left a hose outside and he tripped over it, whatnot. The insurance company will cover you in those types of situations. Most insurance companies will automatically give you $100,000 of protection. Normally, we're going to increase that to $300,000 of protection.
Now, with that example, say a painter or somebody or a kid's playing in the yard and they get hurt. How much will they press charges for? Is $300,000 enough, or on average, kind of what do you see with that?
10, 15 years ago, $300,000 might have been fine. Nowadays, Florida is ranked, I think, second or third worst state for litigiousness as far as claims are concerned, whether it be auto, home, that sort of thing. So you got to protect yourselves. The bottom line comes down to, is $300,000 enough? In most cases, it would probably suffice, but we've seen plenty of cases even within our own agency that far exceeded that. My recommendation ultimately looking forward is trying to work with an agent that's going to package that along with an umbrella policy. And that's something we could talk about later, but an umbrella policy gives you an additional liability to protect your assets, things that you work hard for.
Right. Now, living near the coast, I-75 is 5 to 6 miles from the beach.
Right.
And we saw Hurricane Harvey come through Houston last year and flood everything. A lot of the flood zones here in Sarasota are flood zone X, which is not required by a lender to have flood insurance. With what you're seeing today in the trends, do people really need flood insurance if they're not in a flood zone? And what do you see people doing now after what they saw with Hurricane Harvey?
You would not believe the influx of people that we had after they saw pictures of Harvey in Houston, come through the doors, bang the doors down, to get a flood policy. The entire state, as you know, is a flood zone, okay? There's different flood zones, so the bottom line comes down to is whether or not you're in a high-risk zone or a low-risk zone. There's 3 low-risk zones that are under the NFIP, which is the National Flood Insurance Program. There's X, there's C, and there's B. All 3 of those zones are not required to carry insurance for lender purposes. Those three zones qualify for what they consider a preferred policy, and in most cases that can be done anywhere between, usually, depending upon the size of the house here locally, is going to be between about $300 to about $450.
Now, if a hurricane came through, and there was a lot of rain and it flooded, am I covered under hurricane insurance or not?
And that's a great question. So we found out, and a lot of people found out the hard way when we dealt with Hurricane Katrina. And we didn't deal with it here locally, but Mississippi and Louisiana. So a lot of those folks that were in X, C, and B zones had hurricane insurance, but didn't have flood insurance. So then it was an argument as to, the hurricane brought the water did the damage. Okay, well, if the hurricane brought it, then it's really a hurricane. Well, the judges, when all of these went to court, because the companies denied these claims,
right,
they come back and ultimately side in the favor of the insurance companies to say, ultimately, bottom line comes down to it's the actual what causes the damage. The storm surge was caused by the hurricane, but the physical water did the damage. That's considered a flood.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful because the insurance companies are real quick to get off of that. If there's anything deemed flood, you could potentially be without coverage for certain certain incidences.
Wow. So our final question of the day comes back to a first-time home buyer. What advice would you give a first-time home buyer when they're looking for homeowners insurance?
A couple of things that you're going to want. You always want them to throw in the wind mitigation inspection.
Absolutely.
The number one, because it's the first thing we're going to ask for on a home built prior to 2002.
How much does a wind mitigation average discount of insurance premium per year?
Anywhere between $500 or $600 up to $1,500. Again, depending upon the company, depending upon the amount of discounts. So as the home gets older, the wind mitigation credits get larger because the base premium on an older home is higher
And
so the credits.
What's a cost of a wind mitigation? Just
Wind
so
mitigation
people can know.
inspection normally costs anywhere between $60 to about $85.
So you're saying for $60 to less than $100, it can save me on average of $600 per year just by default.
Best investment you'll ever make on a new home.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Nino, I thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I'm going to drop his contact info at the bottom, and I've referred clients to Nino. Nino's a great guy. I trust him, and if you are in the market for home, auto, flood insurance, he is a great guy to contact.